Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Sato. I'm with Ursula Koeniges. I am one of the organizers for the LSSW 24, and I'm also the biological and physical sciences program scientist for exploration in the Science Mission Directorate. I would like to welcome everyone to LSSW 24, Science Drivers and Capabilities for Lunar Surface Habitat Research Facilities. At this workshop, you will be learning more about Moon to Mars architecture and also the fundamental translational and applied sciences that we intend to do on the moon. That will be followed by the very important breakout session where we will gather your information through a series of questions that Ursula will describe at the beginning of the breakout sessions with instructions. So right now, I would like to introduce Dr. Brad Bailey, who is the Assistant Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration in the Exploration Science Strategy and Integration Office in the Science Mission Directorate, to welcome you all to this workshop. Brad, it's all yours.
Great, thanks, Kevin. And I will echo Kevin and say it's wonderful to have you all here participating in this important lunar surface science workshop. We've done a lot of work to start to define what those initial Artemis missions look like. And with the new tool of the multi-purpose habitat coming on board in the 2033 timeframe or so, in conjunction with Artemis 8, it really does represent an opportunity to a broader suite of scientists across the lunar science spectrum to address their science with long-lived instruments and exposure experiments on the lunar surface. So I'd like to get started to really just talk about the wonderful opportunities that exist right now and also in the very near future as we're planning towards those outer year missions. What you see on the screen here is a list of what we have working within the Science Mission Directorate on science activities planned for Artemis. And you'll see everything on here from near term for Artemis 3. You all know that we've selected a science team and we have plans and are actually outfitting right now the science evaluation room. We've made selections for the Artemis 3 deployed instruments and are getting ready to release a draft for the Artemis 4 deployed instrument solicitation. We're also looking at and working with ESDMD on development of tools that the astronauts will use on the surface, as well as handheld instruments that the astronauts can also use to make sure that they are choosing the right samples for sample return. You've also seen a draft on the street for lunar terrain vehicle instruments, and at some point in the not too distant future, we'll also be looking at how best to instrument the pressurized rover. We are also looking at how do we beef up our curation facilities, and in order to make sure that all the samples we return are curated appropriately, and we can actually perform the analyses that we need to do in order to push forward the boundaries on what we understand from the lunar surface. You also are probably aware that we have a number of CLIPS deliveries that are planned for later this year, as well as a number planned for next year, and honestly, a couple every year out in perpetuity. So CLIPS and the accompanying PRISM, Payloads and Research Investigations from the Surface of the Moon, PI-led investigations that primarily manifest those CLIPS deliveries. Those are also a great opportunity for all science, not just planetary science, but all science investigations to be conducted from the lunar surface. We also take very seriously everything that's coming out of the decadals for each of the science divisions of SMD. And so two of the things we've been working on and been kicking off studies for, the first is endurance, and the endurance concept is defined in the decadal, and that's represented there kind of in the top middle on the South Pole Aitken Basin sample return. And we're also looking at how can we conduct the lunar geophysical network through how does that work? How does that dovetail in with our other plans? But of course, and we're also planning on launching Lunar Trailblazer. That's going to be on a ride share on the same mission that Intuitive Machines 2 or the Prime 1 mission is going. And so Lunar Trailblazer is going to be picking up where M Cubed on Chandrayaan left off and investigating volatiles across the lunar surface. But of course, the reason that we're here is the multi-purpose habitat and understanding what the community needs are, what types of science can we do within that, and what are our real needs, so that as we're working closely with our partners who are developing that MPH, what are those requirements that are needed to be put into the vehicle so that we understand how we can do the best science possible with that asset on the surface. Next slide, please. And I wanted to note that, of course, science makes heavy use of architecture. Without architecture and our colleagues within the ESDMD who are developing most of that architecture, I would argue that we wouldn't be able to conduct the valuable science and decadal level science investigations that we really need to be doing from the lunar surface. And so you'll see here a representative suite of bits of architecture that we are using. And I know that I'm out of time, Ricky, but I'm going to eat into my next 5 minutes that I think I'm supposed to give at the beginning of the next session. And so we have we have Orion, we have crew in suits, we have deployed instruments, the gateway, there's curatorial facilities, as I mentioned earlier, and then on the bottom left, we have exploration ground systems, scan, or the data relay network that we have available for getting all the valuable data back down to Earth. Mobility, you'll see LTV there in the middle. We also have the MPH and then, of course, just surface in place infrastructure, such as pressurized rover and power on the surface. Every single one of those bits of architecture are absolutely critical to us conducting those high priority science investigations. And so it's wonderful to see all these things coming together, and we're really excited to be working arm in arm with our ESDMV colleagues. Next slide, please. And this is just my last slide. I just wanted to just to call out that the FY25 President's budget request, this is the planning manifest from that President's budget request. And the wonderful thing that you see here is that everything I just mentioned is called out here and actually is on a timeline, so that we can start planning for what we're expecting to do when, and so you have an understanding of kind of timeline for solicitations and when things are going to be coming out, and also to make sure that your particular brand of science is well represented within the overall Artemis enterprise. And so hopefully you can see that embedded within here. But if you're not excited about the sheer number of opportunities and assets going to the moon as represented on this slide, then you might be in the wrong business, because it really is a wonderful time to be a lunar scientist, with all the CLIPS deliveries going, with all the Artemis missions going, and also the orbital assets that are taking data from orbit as well. And again, this isn't just SMD and ESDMD. Space Operations Mission Directorate and the Space Technology Mission Directorate are also conducting a lot of investigations and missions to and around the moon. So I hope you all are as excited as I am about this. And again, I do really appreciate you all taking the time to come and participate in the LSSW, because it really will be influential in how we define what those requirements on that those surface habitats really look like, so we can all do the wonderful science that we know that could be achieved with such an asset. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Kevin, and we'll get rolling for the rest of the program. Thank you all again.